Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we're going to be breaking down some of the trades that I took last week and how you could have caught some of the same moves. These are going to be on Ethereum, as I haven't really been trading NFTs too much. I've mostly just been trading crypto, currencies, and commodities. So overall, it was a pretty decent week. I was able to close out the week with about 5K profit, which is pretty good. So before we dive in, I'm actually going to go onto Etherscan so I can show you guys that these trades are real and that these are my own and that these have actually come from my own wallets. So if we look right now, I have MetaMask open. You can see that this is my account. I'm going to click the transaction. I'm going to go to Etherscan, and I think I have the same one open here. Yeah, so I'll just close this one, refresh this. So this is the main trade that we're going to be breaking down, but you can see that I swapped out of Ethereum for USDC. So it was about 44.2K. And this was the original transaction where I swapped from USDC into ETH. So I bought ETH to go long for about 42.6K. So you can see the difference there, 42.6K versus when I converted back, it was about 44.2K. So we're going to go ahead and break down the entire setup, why I got into this trade, why I actually wasn't able to hit my profit target completely, and probably what I could have done better, because realistically, this was supposed to be like a $6,000 trade that I was expecting, or at least hoping for my target. But I only made about $2,000 on this trade. So we're going to break down exactly what happened. All right, so we're going to go ahead and hop on the Ethereum charts, hop on the 4-hour time frame to keep things pretty clean. We'll mostly just be sticking to the 4-hour time frame, the daily and the weekly. So essentially, ever since this 1400 area was rejected, I've been looking for longs the entire time. If we hop into Azeroth, I've been breaking down all my analysis. Basically, if we go, so this chart right here, ever since we rejected this 1400 level, I've been expecting buys. And I also mentioned that on the daily and the weekly, we hadn't yet closed below this 1500 level. So if we got buys back into the zone, we actually could flip bullish, even though it was looking super bearish. At the time, if we hop on the daily chart, we had the daily close below, but we didn't have the weekly close below. So you could see that at the time, it was really just a wick that hadn't closed. And so basically what I was looking for, considering there was less than 24 hours left in the weekly candlestick and the rejection we got of 1400, is that we could see price close back above 1500, in which case we're probably going to see buyers come into the market, and this is no longer going to be a seller's market. So even though the trade that I took was from here to here, I think it's important to break this down to kind of have an understanding of why I was confident in taking this trade in the first place. So if we break things down, it's pretty simple. We have these lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, and simple market structure. So the market is continuously making new lows, and when it's going up on those retracements, it's making lower highs. In this case, we were testing the previous highs. I wouldn't really consider this a break. So we were kind of just ranging around these previous highs to see if we could take out those highs. We had a double top on the weekly and the daily. That's why we ended up coming down, breaking this level of support on the daily, and then coming back down to retest 1400, which was also a pretty solid level of support that I had, as well as a psychological level, a rounded psychological level. But we failed to hold that on the weekly. And as I mentioned, there was less than a day left for that weekly candle to close. So essentially, once that candle actually closed bullish and we failed to break and hold below structure, that was a pretty good sign that there were a lot more buyers in the market. On top of that, it's pretty clear if you look at this candlestick, there was a lot of rejection to the downside, and ultimately buyers ended up finishing the week strong. So you can see it was a pretty strong weekly close, and the next week had little to no downside. So overall, the momentum was just definitely in the buyer's favor. Eventually, we got that breakout on the weekly. That, to me, this plus this holding above signified, okay, we finally actually just broke out of those previous highs. We broke out of that lower high point. So now we just formed a new high. And now in my mind, for the first time in several months, market structure has finally shifted bullish. So when it came down to actually taking this trade, it was pretty simple. It really wasn't complex. Over here, we had previous resistance. As you can see, we had multiple weeks bouncing off of this range. I adjusted this as the weeks and the days went on to see what was more relevant. But here you can see we had multiple rejections, 1, 2, 3, 4, basically 5, 6 rejections of this resistance level. And when we finally broke above, well, what's going to happen if we were previously resisting it? We're probably going to come back down into support to see if buyers can actually maintain that level to take it higher. So that's exactly what we did. Hopping on the daily chart, again, all this is here. I broke down all my analysis pretty in depth as to why we would probably come back into these levels and to refrain from buying until then, because you realistically could have taken trades from this level right here, this level of support on the daily, taking trades in between this range. But I wanted to look for the most high probability trade, type of trade that would maximize my reward while minimizing my risk, because I always knew that although this was a pretty strong daily level right here, the weekly zone and the daily zone below that had a lot more significance because there's a lot larger moves happening from this area. As we can see back here and over here, it's just more relevant. So in my mind, I was thinking this is an area of support. There's a lot of resting liquidity down here. So there's definitely people's stop losses down here where if they get out of the trade, they're going to sell their positions. That's obviously going to push price lower. So the area that I was really targeting was this previous level of daily resistance as support. We go down to the 4 hour, we can see we tapped into that. And this was pretty close to the daily close. So the daily close had a nice rejection candlestick, which is pretty much good enough for me because when I'm trading cryptocurrencies, I'm not really intraday trading them as I am with normal currencies and commodities. I'm really trying to swing trade these. So after we got that daily rejection, all I wanted to see was a little tap back down into the 1700 area to take a long. And that's exactly what we got. So I believe this was the daily close candle on the daily. The next 4 hour candle tap back in. That is where I went ahead and swapped for USDC. I think I got in at like 1704.80, something around there. So pretty much right here. And my target was the highs. Now in my analysis, I broke down that I was targeting the highs and then we could potentially see it run up to 1950, which we almost got. But obviously there's a lot higher probability of the highs getting taken out before we go ahead and meet new highs. So essentially when it came down to managing this position, it was pretty easy. I think at this point I was up about 4.5-5 thousand, but I ended up actually closing for a little under 2K profit because we were ranging over here. And at the time, I think I had my 4 hour level right here and it looked like price had broken under just before the daily close. I didn't want to risk it. And as you can clearly see with those transactions, I'm trading on a DEX, so decentralized exchange. So I can't use limit orders or stop orders to automatically get out of my position. Because if so, I probably just would have set a trailing stop loss for profit around here. But since I'm trading on a DEX, I couldn't do that. And I don't really want to be trading on a centralized exchange right now with all that's going on. I don't want to wake up one day and all my money be gone. So I'm taking it a little bit more cautiously. And that's also why I'm swing trading, because you can, but it's definitely a lot harder to manage intraday trading on a DEX because you're going to have to go in and completely fulfill all those orders manually, which is what I did. As you saw, I had to manually swap those orders. I didn't have any limit orders in place that said buy here, sell here, take profit here, stop loss here, etc. So ultimately I ended up getting about out around here, somewhere in this range right here. Initial target did get hit. It's unfortunate because when I really took the time to break down the zone, I had just woken up to it. It's like the worst time. You know, you just wake up, you're like, what's happening? I saw that price was kind of trading below the zone. I was like, all right, I think I'm just going to go ahead and secure my profits. Ultimately, the zone was actually holding. And after these targets got hit, I mentioned in my latest post, I think, that, okay, this is actually how I was able to make a little more, because while I was holding that trade, I actually did take another intraday position on a different brokerage, not a DEX, where I took buys from here up into the highs right here. So it was this trade right here. Basically just said, look for this intraday level to bounce off and go to the highs. After the targets had been met, I was looking for this 1775 area to hold right here, as you can see on the 4 hour and daily right here. So basically I just said, if we can maintain this level, then yeah, we'll probably see new highs. That's exactly what has happened now. So that's pretty much how that trade played out. That's exactly why I got in. Pretty simple, pretty solid, high probability trade. We had broken above the highs on the weekly. We got another closure confirming the break was authentic. We came back in, tested previous highs as support, and then we simply went up from there. And I was just targeting previous highs. I wasn't going to get too greedy. Now, obviously that would have been nice because I would have made an extra couple grand, probably would have been more like 8 or 9K, but it is what it is. And keep in mind, if we look at this trade, ultimately this trade took 2 days. Yeah, 2 days and 16 hours. If I got out around the highs, it would have been about 2 days. And that wasn't the only trade I took. I think on that same day, I had a trade on the pound yen. So yeah, I had another trade on the pound yen. Pretty much a similar trade. You can see I had a pretty similar entry type with this rejection candlestick. Kind of the same thing right here. It was just a rejection candlestick. So overall, what I'd be looking for now going to next week and wrapping up this week is for the daily to kind of retest in this range somewhere over here. So if we can get a nice retest into this range over here, which we can kind of see was previous support here. We also had a little bit of resistance here, a big rejection here. So what I would be looking for next week is, I'll definitely clean this up for my own analysis later on, but essentially I'd be looking for a retest of price coming down into this area around 1820, and then seeing if price can hold as support. So something like this, we can hold as support and then potentially go up. And again, the safest thing is always to take out the previous highs, because if you're looking for new highs, then your probability of that profit targeting actually getting hit is significantly lower, because price is just always more likely to at least take out the previous highs, because that is essentially where we're going to find price start to slow down at, and sellers come in the market and say, okay, buyers are exhausted, we're going to take this thing back down, we're going to consolidate in between the range, kind of like what we did here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we hit 2000. Ultimately, my target, like I said, was about 1950 to 2000. If you look on the weekly time frame, realistically, we're just coming into this previous area of support and resistance, or supply and demand, however you want to look at it, whatever you want to call it. So I would kind of be looking at price take out these highs over here, because ultimately there is resting liquidity up here, which basically just means, you know, people who have short positions or have been selling this, there is definitely stop losses up here as well as buy stops. So if price were to come up here, it would definitely trigger a lot of liquidity in the market. But on the shorter time frames, what I'm looking for again is probably just a retest into this daily and H4 area. On the weekly, we could potentially get a steeper pullback, but realistically, I think if we got a steeper pullback, we would have to break under this level 1820. And at that point, if we broke under on the daily and the 4 hour, I'd be a little bit more cautious of taking buys, just because then we're right back under resistance. So what I'll be looking for is price just to kind of move into this area, maybe consolidate a little bit, make sure that buyers are actually coming in the market, and then distribute higher. So that's pretty much it for the trade breakdown. And I will leave a link in the bio if any of you guys want to hop into the server to see my analysis. It's completely free. I just break down my analysis. The server is closed, so I'll just probably leave the form link that you just fill out. Super easy. I'll invite anyone. I just want to make sure that you actually take the time to at least say, hey, I want to join the server. And then I will just send you an invite on Twitter. Details will be on that link. That's pretty much it. Let me know if you guys like this video, if you enjoyed it, if you want to see more content like this. This is my bread and butter. This is what I mostly focus on. So if you guys want to see more crypto trades or breakdowns, or even currencies and commodities, which I trade, because I trade gold, XAUUSD, and as you saw on that other trade that I showed you, British pound, Japanese yen. And then every now and then I'll swing trade cryptos. And then of course, obviously trade NFTs depending on the market. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Again, comment below. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful. Let me know what you guys want to see or see more of. I'm also probably going to do a video next week of pro.opensea, because they just released their new marketplace with analytics. That's going to be it for this video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.